Also, okay.
I find your recordings really helpful, and then I take notes from them, but sometimes I just feel like, what am I'm missing something here. So anyway, that's what this is about.
I think that in any group class, in any group, when you bring a group of people together, we're not all like, we're in a similar thread because we're all interested in encaustics and photography, but we're not exactly on the same thread or in the same place with our work or the same experience level. So it does always, when you put a group together,
No,
for
this
all the
has
blessings.
been great to get me started, and
Yeah.
and then I see where I wrote you about where some of the holes are.
And I love that you were able to, sort of pinpoint your intentions, your questions, and your sort of what you want to learn. And also, so I think we, like I said in the email, I think we should stick to that. I mean, again, like as a teacher, I've been a teacher for a long time, and there are always those moments of frustration, being a teacher where you feel like you're, not sharing enough, or you're sharing too much, or you're being too controlling or not controlling enough. There's always but I think, the only way we all grow is just being like open to growth and communicate to one another, what we don't understand, ask a lot of questions, et cetera, et cetera. So I have been offering people, and you can tell me if this sounds helpful to you or not, but working on the same images, that my students are working on. So, so I have your files. Like, we could, not today because my printer's been down. It's not broken. I just needed to I ran out of ink. So whatever I had.
Actually, that sounds great, especially when we get to some of the trickier ones. It's like, I mean, I would love that.
I think visual education is a phenomena. It's like a really interesting thing because I can describe something to you, and I can articulate something to you, but I still think unless you see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, like it took me a while to figure out, like when I was fusing with the heat gun. Like I asked you, because I couldn't see that it was kind of shiny. You have to wait for that. So I think I asked you about it, and then when you said it, okay, and then you showed it, and I said, oh, okay, I get that. So I think a lot of this it is a little hard to do it distance-wise, but
well, we just have to. I say we'll be together. I love your area, so I'm like totally dying to get on a plane right now. But not right now. Well, but in the future we'll be together, perhaps. But another thing too is it's always good to really. I'm a believer in really understanding the foundation and the vocabulary and the skills involved in a medium before you actually even try to be like super creative with it, right? So you have to remember in a lot of ways that whatever you're trying to achieve creatively, you're still also just building the blocks of your fundamental technique.
Absolutely.
Right? So you have
I have some basic questions that I feel like, I missed that step. I should have gone back to that basic step.
Right, which I think is, but I just think the awareness of that and like sort of the gentleness of, like when you think about whatever you've learned in your life, whether it was like riding a bicycle or yoga or whatever it was that you ever tried to learn, you're always like in this learning process, right? And then you sort of, once you have that foundation, then other things can start to blossom and occur. But you have to be very patient with yourself while you're in that foundation period. And you have to remember too, like there are no encaustic colleges. There are no, graduate programs in encaustic painting. I mean, I can't wait till some college comes up with an MFA in encaustic painting because I might have to go get one. You know what I mean? So
you'd be teaching it.
hopefully, but hopefully, I would love to teach it, or be a part of it. But I think that this is truly like glass blowing or ceramics or oil painting or, any of these art forms that we've categorized as fine art forms. I think encaustic painting is a huge art form, and it has a lot of fundamental rules and, sort of vocabulary and techniques that really apply to it. And I've luckily been able to just sort of learn as I go. And I always laugh that, my first encaustic pieces were so simple. And I always say, like, simple is beautiful. Like, simple is still, like, there's a part of me that's always nostalgic for the artist that I was, because what happens for me with art, and I'm sure this is like probably what's happened for you, or even in life, is like the more you know, you want to keep learning. The more you know, then you're like, the more you have to think about, the more you have to process, like the more choices you have to make. It's almost like awareness is beautiful, but it's also sort of like heavy, because when you are fully aware, then you're like considering all of these options all the time. And I feel like even culturally, we're at that point where everybody's so sensitive and so aware of so many things that we're almost like, in an overwhelm. So then you go, oh shoot, I wish I was just like an ignorant young, like pig-headed artist that was just in there making a mess, and look what happened. Like magic happened, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't even know what encaustic painting was, right? So we always have to remember too, like knowledge and this, like knowledge and freedom, like experimentation, so you have to kind of go back and forth. You don't ever want to like lose your boldness, or you don't ever want to be afraid to break a rule, because nobody's perfect. Like, as much as you can learn, I think it's fun, So when I talk about really simple work, especially for the encaustic and photography, I'm talking about like a photo, like a coating of wax, okay? And then maybe some color, adding a color. So that was where I started, okay? Because for me, I wanted to take a photograph. I didn't want a photograph to be reproducible. I want every single one of my photographs to be one of a kind. So I was really focused on that simple sort of desire. Like, how can I achieve this? Because how can I achieve individuality, originality, and self-expression in this, like, what I considered at the time, this hard-nosed, masculine, technical, driving me crazy medium of photography. Like, it was, I loved it passionately, but it was also like killing me, because I felt it was so restrictive and everyone was trying to control it. And, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to tear my paper in half, and I'm going to use too many chemicals, and I'm going to use sandpaper, and I'm going to put it, get glue all over it. And so these were the things that drove me to finding encaustic. So, but always going back to that initial, like, I'm in love with this, like this initial, like, I need something so bad. And then this thing appearing in my life being like, this is the thing that I'm gonna like use, because it's answering my like soul questions. It's satisfying my need to take a photo and go make it into something else, transform it, like the caterpillar. I always like the caterpillar to the butterfly, right? That it goes through this process, and it was this, but now it's transforming into something, right? So I mean, that's just like where I'm at all the time with my work. That's like my soul thing. And how much wax you use, how many layers, how many, like, these are all individual day-to-day, choices that you can experiment with, and joyfully. Like, it's always, a bit of like trial and error, I can try, right. And I can try to teach you sort of like answers to the riddles, like what works for me, or what I know works for other compulsive painters. So
Yeah.
that you can find your own style, because ultimately you really want to find techniques that you enjoy
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
things that you think are appealing, like that are attractive to you or interesting to you, and also things that work well with your photography.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So think of it a little bit about like dating, right? So you have the photography in you already, and then it's looking for like a dance partner or
Yeah.
dinner date,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So there's definitely a lot of dinner dates that you don't want to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to waste your time with.
You know that you just aren't gonna get in. You're just gonna throw up. Like you can't eat your food. You're gonna be uncomfortable. You're gonna be
Yeah.
wanting to leave the seat, like jump out of this chair the whole time. So you need to start to sort of really think about those things for you personally. And what I like
Mm-hmm.
to do, I'm very, very sensitive to all of my surroundings, and um, very aware of nature and the things that are almost what I call non-art, but are around me. So like I see behind you, you have beautiful rugs,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
I like to have, I love having a beautiful setting inside, and then, of course, living here, it's beautiful outside. So, yeah, both.
right,
Yeah.
but nothing happens by accident. So you've chosen the things that are in your home, and you've chosen where you live and what you consider beautiful. It might be an interesting, and you don't have to do this right now because you probably don't. This is something I would ask you to do quietly by yourself, but you might want to write a list of colors that you like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and shapes. I call this like it's called your personal context and syntax. So each of us in the underbelly of our creative brain, we have forms. So I think I've talked about like I'm not a geometric person. So when you ask me, and I'm actually going to teach a workshop this winter on geometric art, because
Mm.
I feel like doing what scares you the most
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah,
always
right.
exciting, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
so most of the time you're just trying to overcome the fear, but
Yeah.
but
Right.
you know, that's definitely something I've been
Yeah.
a risk taker my whole, so anyway, but so my shapes, I'm definitely like a squiggly person, a curvy person, like for composition, because I love the female figure. So like, you know, like this could be these curvy lines. Like this is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a vertical straight line person. I would be more
Yeah.
of the circular or the square of the,
Mhm.
the squiggly.
Right.
So
Mhm.
so that allows me to kind of say, okay, this is my intuitive, this is how I act. Okay, so this is how I'm going to act on top of this photo. And then how am I going to make that work? Like where is my mind taking me? And also what am I seeing in the photo that the wax can add? What is it that the wax is going to add? Like, and
Mhm.
this is like an MFA, Masters of Art question. This is no joke. Like, you could not put a picture up there in any way, either unframed, framed, black and white color, blue, holes in it, wax on, without being able to answer why. Like what is that?
Mhm.
What is the purpose? What is it trying to say?
Mhm.
Like what are you, and for a long time people would go, well, why do you like everything that's old? When they'd see my work, they'd say old.
Hmm.
And
Because of the lace and yeah, the soft. Yeah. Huh.
I would say, oh, old. I'd say, okay, old, but not old. That wasn't my intention. I would say fragile.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
would start to want to go into like better words, like fragile, uh,
Soft.
ephemeral,
Mhm.
soft,
Mhm.
misty, like
Mhm.
foggy.
Mhm.
You know, um, gentle,
Mhm.
wise. Like right there's, so old wasn't my favorite word. Like I actually was felt, that wasn't a good, I was like, but then it could evoke those other things. So those are words that I like to use to talk about my work. So you could start a journal along with this class, or a little bit of extra writing that I would encourage you to do about, and just start to ask yourself on a daily basis, like, these are things that you can do all the time. Like when you're outside, you can be like, oh, I love those 3 buildings together. And then you just say, well, why? Ask yourself, like, well, why do I love those 3 buildings together? Do you like them because they're, weather beaten and textured and cracking? Do you like them because they're falling over and they're old and they're not straight, they're bent and broken? So these are sort of, and then the answers to these questions can come into your encaustic work.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think already, I'm from what you're saying, I think already I've started doing some of that. Like, part of it is facing the fear. Oh, I put so much work in this. Am I really going to take a chance and possibly ruin this? It's like facing that fear and say, okay, you got to just, you just have to get in there and practice. But the other thing, I'm doing a self-expression project, which I've never done before, but it's a lot of these things that you're talking about are coming up.
Oh, good.
I see that I keep coming back to circles, circles, circles. I mean, that's very strong. And I tried to do one thing with some triangles. Okay, but I come back to the circle. So that kind of thing. For me, it's the light. I take a hike in the morning, and, and that sunlight, backlight, something, it's just like, whoa. So I love that. So I think already this is happening, and I'm journaling it. Some of it's with words and some of it's visually because of this project I'm doing.
Nice.
So cool. Yeah, it's really cool. And the other thing is trying to describe what my photographic style is. And I look at it and I said, wow, it's all over the place. So let's see what some of the threads are. So that, I love that you're encouraging me to do this because it's already starting. So, okay.
That's awesome. And I think I'm getting ready to teach the figurative encaustic class, which is starting Wednesday. So, the figure for me has been, it wasn't my intention to be a figurative artist. It sort of happened to me. And then I went like full force into it, and I loved it. I loved all my time with all of my models, and I loved getting people naked. I loved like it was so challenging and risky, and I loved it. But again, now I'm like departed, I've done that. I did that for, over 20 years. And now I'm trying to do these other things. So this is like, I'm in a real space of new challenges and looking, content and what is, and then of course you're always like, is this good or bad? But I think what we should do today is leave the theoretical. Let's go into some wax techniques. And I think I'd really like you to kind of like rewind everything that we did. Like, don't take it away. Don't take the 6 classes away, but you did those 6 classes. They were amazing. I gave away a lot of information.
You did, and it's incredible. But I also felt, wow, I'm a beginner. I want to like A, B, C, but it was still good because I just jumped into it, and it was a lot of information.
Right, in a way, it was like going to an advanced physics lecture.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, that's what it was. Yeah, it was like that.
Physics student, and you're like, wow, this is so cool. Like, I just can't wait to like understand what the hell she just said. Like.
Right.
Like I totally feel like, but you know what? Sometimes I always call it like the fake it till you make it. Sometimes just going through the motions, and I can't tell you how many times in art, like I've reached out to other artists, or I've looked online, or I've Googled photos, and I've gone to my reliable sources, and I'd be like, I have a shoot today. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm going to pack a bag. I'm going to look at my 3 favorite artists. I'm going to count to 10 and I'm just going to start, you know, and then
it starts coming. It just starts coming in.
What choice do we have? Like, we're not, you know, like showing up is like 99%. I mean, someone told me showing up is 50%. And I was like, no, if you don't show up, nothing's happening. Like, showing up and trying is the most important thing. And like anything else, I'm going to say is I sound like that mean old violin teacher, but practicing every day, you know, like pushing yourself to be prolific. And I think I've tried to give everybody some, what I call like, it's not like cheating, but I always try to remind people that there are tricks to the trade, like tricks to producing a lot. And I think one of the things I tried to encourage people was to paint a lot of image, like paint the same image, print in quantity, right? And paint more than one time. The same image. And that is a surefire way for me. Sorry, my last was confused by that window. That's always been a surefire way for me to just produce. Because if I only had one print and one panel, I would be all nervous and judgy and stiff and like afraid. And, you know, because, I'm going to mess it up, right? Also, I think you really need to be able to kind of almost like do and process. Like,
I do. I need time to integrate. Yeah.
Right. So do something, like put it somewhere where you can look at it, take pictures of it on your iPhone or your device, put them through a couple apps, see what happens. And this is also really a helpful thing for me to be able to decide what I like. If I like it, I really don't, and I can't emphasize this enough. I really try not to process while I'm working. I try to trust, just stay, I call it connected. Stay connected.
It's like writing. You write, but you don't edit as you're writing. You edit later.
Exactly. Because it's 2 different parts of your brain, and it's like 2 totally different, like people, you know, like we're we're believing in that multiple personalities are a healthy thing, right? So we don't, you know, we don't want like, you know, editor Leah over here while artist Leah is trying to make something. There ain't enough room. Like, there's just not enough room there. So let's try to focus on a couple of these really, I'm not even calling them beginner, but just nice technical.
Yeah, I feel like beginner's mind is really important for me. I mean, you know, because I am a beginner, and it's good. I like that. Let's do this.
So you have to think too that, like, while I can maybe now use encaustic paint and colored encaustic paint, for a long time I did not.
Okay.
I mean, for a long time I used really wax medium, or even like bleached wax and wax medium over photos, and then maybe like 1 or 2 colors.
I like that, especially with the second 2, that's the first 2 prints that you did for me. They're very, I think they call out for real simplicity, and that's probably why you said those would be good to work with. Right. So yeah.
Right. So my best friend and my closest girlfriend, her name is Elizabeth Messina, and we could not be more opposite. I mean, she is simple to the P, like simple, like completely simple in her work, and she's been extraordinarily successful, and she's consistently, you know, I would call it repeating herself, but also, you know, you could call it something else. You could call it mastery. You could call it conclusiveness. You could call it, you know,
and you're you're of a very different style because you're always weaving. So it was kind of fun to get a feeling for that. But I like the idea of going back to simple and basic. That's
right, because but see, I've realized my personality is I have anxiety, I have depression. Like there are things about me physically that could never allow me to do work like that. So again, you have to kind of always calculate who you, as the artist, you're calculating not only what you want, your desire, but also who you are based on your, your physical and mental state, like who you are. So these are things, these are just things. And I am I'm messy. Like I'm in my mind, I'm organized, but I'm also messy. And I also like to, what I call toss it. Like if there was a way to do like a word for throwing it up in the air, like making it really perfect and pretty and having all the ingredients, but then at the last minute, like tossing, and letting the chip, like letting it fall. And that's why I kind of am like, let that happen. Like if that's how you feel, then let that happen. Like this is the place for that to happen. This is my place where I can tune into that subconscious, unconscious being and let her do what she wants with the wax. But these are things that could be terrifying if you're like, you're thinking still about is this okay? Am I going to break it? Is it going to catch on fire? Am I going to ruin it?
That kind of quote messiness has been really good for me. I mean, I feel like, wow, look at the possibility, let me try this, and I really get into it. So to have that taste is really good.
Yeah.
So I'm going back and forth between the two.
I really can relate to what you're saying. Like so many photographers have been like taking classes with me, and they've been like, I want to loosen up. And I go, okay, well, this is the place,
There it is.
Like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Because the thing is too, like, now with ink printing and digital, we really can produce. We're not spending hours on, the gelatin silver fiber-based prints.
Right.
We're not sacrificing our lung health and our, we're not spending hours setting up the darkroom. Everything's more in a flow. So we can provide ourselves with 3 or 4 black and white copies of a photo. And I could even give you an assignment. It's like where you do, and we could call them like one straight, like I would call straight up, and then one, you could call, flipped in some way, and one you could call like super textured, right? And then one you could call very colorful. I mean, that's just 4 ideas.
Yeah.
Right? For one print. And then if like our next class, we could do something that I could actually demonstrate that. So let's start with like the super smooth one, right? Like you're just going to take a photo. You would take the wax medium. Do you want to paint? Are you going to paint today? How do you want to do this?
I've melted the wax. Yeah, I have everything. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm ready too. I just have to turn, I'm going to turn on a little bit more light because I feel like this window over here the backlighting is weird. And I'm going to turn these lights on and hope that I get more light. And
so before you get into that, so I get things ready, I'm working on the one that's it's not really simple, but it could be. So I'm wondering if we should start with that. It's this one. I've already sent you a picture of it.
I think I posted that on Facebook today.
You did?
I did. I just picked some random pictures from our class.
I got the burnt umber, and I wanted to do the browns. And
well, we can post it again before and after. I mean, it's fine.
Okay. All right. So I was wondering if we could start with that one. Although for simplicity, I love the first 2 that you sent prints of, because those are the ones I really want to work on. But this one, I feel like
They
I'm
both have
ready to.
they all have figures in them, right?
They're all figurative. Yeah.
Right. So the hardest image that you have there is definitely the one with the tree, and it's
It
hard.
is hard.
It's
Oh,
hard.
so wait. Okay.
One of the reasons that I would say that that's hard is because it has a lot of content that's important to its literacy.
Okay.
It has, wait, listen, it has a lot of content that's important to its literacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So literacy of an art image to me is how that photo is read, right? So it's like, so you have to go into what you know about viewing artwork, and
Okay.
also maybe what is you're the writer, right? You're the creator. What is your intention for that photo? And if you're to add wax, what is it that you want the wax to do for you?
Okay.
Do you want the wax to add texture? Do you want the wax to create imagination, like fantasy? Do you want the wax to hide something? Do you want the wax to add something? Okay, so those are simple questions, but in a weird way, if you could maybe answer them or be like, I don't know, all of the above, you know, any answer is fine, but these are things that will help you decide, do you want to be smooth? Do you want to add a bunch of stencils? Do you want to add a dark color, right? Do you want to make a collage? Okay.
Okay. So we'll put that aside because that, whoa. Let me get one of the other ones out. Does it matter which one?
No, I love them both.
I do too. Oh. I kept saying, I'm not going to touch these until I get more of a sense of what's happening here. So this is perfect. All right, let's do Amelia. Okay, so I have
Oh, that's better, right? The lady.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two possibilities. One is I had already used some gesso on
Oh, yeah, I love that one. I remember that. You sent me pictures.
lacing, and I know that it's too white and all that. So that's one possibility. The other one is just straight up to start. There's nothing on this, nothing, and I haven't pasted it on paper or anything yet.
Okay, or a panel. So, okay, so let's just go back to right there. So the decision about paper versus panel is that the panel will give you the substrate, and the substrate will allow you to add more wax and also, so more depth. Like if you're gonna go to a panel, you're gonna know that you can do thicker wax and that you can scrape it with a razor blade. Okay, so
I have a panel. It's like a 1/4 of an inch.
Perfect. Yeah, any panel is fine.
Okay, it's all right. Let me get this down.
So the very first thing I might do is think about edges, and if you adhere that photo to that panel, you're gonna want to probably get rid of the white border. So you could get rid of that white border by either just tearing it with a straight edge, or cutting it with scissors, or free tearing it.
Oh, and so, but also I could color. I could go into it. I could color into it.
You can also color over it, right? You can go outside the lines with black gesso or white gesso, and you can extend the canvas.
Yeah, I kind of like extending the canvas because I like that. I like opening it up like that.
Yeah.
I really like. Okay.
Yeah. And I think to me, I like that too. Like I often push myself to even tear a photo and then put it back together to give me, more painterly effects, like more just to sort of like evoke maybe what's missing or what I can add through drawing or painting. So
Yeah.
again, like for me, I'm trying to move away from the literacy of the image and create a fantasy.
Yeah. So other question, this is a little bit, the board is a little bit bigger. Can that be cut later? Is that an issue?
I like the board bigger. I would put it on there like that.
Okay. All right. So I've got my blue. Should I just put that on right now?
You could do that.
Okay. So it shouldn't be too long.
No, that's fine.
This picture is from last summer when we could go in the creek. I mean, I did a lot of underwater work in the creek. It was just wonderful. And then this year, the creek, there was a sewer spill, so we couldn't get in the creek.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is terrible because it was such a hot summer. But anyway, we're done. Okay, so Leah, don't assume anything. I've never taken art classes.
What is your, Pam, what is your background?
I was a photojournalist.
Oh, okay. And did you work for a newspaper?
I worked for Associated Press, and I was a combat photographer.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah. So, but this is, I love my new life. I just love it. So much nicer.
When did you retire?
Talk about literal. I mean, that kind of photography. And I'm self-taught. I learned in the field, which was something else.
Oh my God, where did you go?
Central America.
Oh my God. So
anyway, it's so nice. So this whole art thing for me is so wonderful.
Oh my God. I should send you. Wait, were you in Cuba or wait, where were you? Wait, that's
Nicaragua during the there and Panama. But it's a long time ago.
Colombia? Colombia?
No, I did not. Oh, thank goodness, I never went to Colombia. That's scary. Colombia.
Oh, really? My friend lives there.
It's scary.
Oh my God. I feel like I couldn't trust anybody I met. Like I'd be afraid they would all take me and kidnap me or something.
Well, yeah, I'm from New York City, so I have a pretty good street sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, for me to now be doing,
I still think you can't. Oh, I would still be afraid. I mean, I think I have street sense too. I live in Philadelphia, but I lived on the streets. I photographed homeless kids for that was like homeless kids and homeless people for about, oh my God, I would say 6 years or something.
Wow. Yeah, I've done some of that when I came out to Arizona. I was doing homeless veterans.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was for a company that was helping them. Anyway, so
have you thought about painting any of those portraits with Encaustic?
Actually, no, but I could go back. Yeah, some of those weathered faces. I mean, yeah.
You could totally paint outside around their outsides, give them new surroundings, and right.
Yeah. I really like the work of, was it Palma, the guy?
Oh, I love it, Luis Gonzalez Palma.
Yeah, I loved his work because of the portrait. Yeah, so yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah,
so this is the art thing is, you can tell, it's totally new for me.
I'm so glad you're having this chapter of your life.
Oh yeah, I am too. It's wonderful. It's nice being older. My kids are grown up, and I can start playing with things like, wow, let me try this. What happens with this? Okay.
Well, Encaustic is, Encaustic is amazing. It's just an amazing medium. It's really beautiful. And just the medium itself is so beautiful.
Oh, I love when I see your work. And I love, when you sent me the prints, you sent a wonderful Usually you send a card or something, and I love those. Okay, I've got it mounted now.
Okay.
I did a roller, so it should be okay.
And just, you know what? I always use this like fatty part of my palm. Like this part is like one of my favorite tools, and I just rub it to get the air bubbles out.
Well, I used the
Okay. I still think you should give it a it's just like telling it you love it. Be like, I love you.
Okay.
I love you. Be flat, no air. Okay. So I have on my plate, I have my mud, and I think I'm just using these like aluminum loaf pans right now.
Okay.
So here's my.
Okay, I have.
There's my hot plate, right?
I have my clear, and then I have my mud here.
Yep. So I keep my brushes in the mud, and notice too, Pam, I have a variety of brushes, right? So I have Hake brushes, and I have the bristle brushes, the little.
Okay.
And I don't know if you have any of these, but they sell them at the hardware store. They're organic bristles, but they're I like them because they're rough. They're always like, I call them like rough and ready, right?
Yeah, you can see the brush strokes.
You can really make a lot of cool texture, and you can make textures that look specifically. I like to do a lot of brain association. I should have been like one of those elementary educators that's like, what does this remind you of? I do those with myself because I think connecting your art to your environment is important, because I do think that, you know, your responsibility as a visual person is to kind of like evoke these connections, you know, between your other people, right, and your observations, right, your awareness, and then your techniques, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of like it's like playing catch game, right? Like someone throws a ball to you, you throw the ball to somebody else, and then we throw it back to, you know, that's how art works, is we influence people and we evoke feelings in them by what we make, right? So if I want to be super smooth evokes a totally different emotion than textured, right? Mm-hmm. So we could just talk about that like all day. I mean, you know, smooth to me is like, is more calm, tranquility, gentleness, right? And texture is like tumultuous, awkward, anxious, right? Stirred up.
Vibrant, you know, because there's more movement with it.
Busy, like traffic, like congestion, chaos. Okay, so those two things right there, those are, I would say, are basic, like starting out points for what brush we use and how we use the brush, right? Okay, so
I have a question. Do you have a separate brush for clear brushing, and then a separate ones for where you have the mud and the colors?
You could do that. You could do a separate brush but you might want to have two brushes. I don't do that, but if you watch me, I clean my brushes. Do you want to watch me clean my brushes? Okay, so here is a paper towel.
Yeah.
And here are my brushes. They're sitting in my mud pot right here. Do you see? And this mud is really kind of a pretty, I mean, I'm obsessed with my mud colors. Like, and I always like to keep some spare white paper around.
Okay. All right. It's cut up. Let's see.
I think it's important to test your color. Like if you tear the edges off of anything, or you have extra white paper, I think it's always fun to have a piece of white paper and like, I'm going to test my mud right now. So like, it's nice to know that like, that's my mud color. You see my mud? Oh, the light is over here. Do you see the mud
color? Ugly. I don't like it.
You don't like my mud color or your mud color?
I like yours. No, my mud is, I had some, so, I think it may have too much pigment in it. Maybe I have to put more clear in.
Well, yeah. Your mud is really just for cleaning your brushes, so you don't technically have to do anything to your mud. But the point I'm trying to make is that if I'm going to take my brush, let's go back to here, watch me. I'm going to take my brush out of my mud, right? Yeah. And I'm going to take a paper towel. I'm just going to brush it out.
Okay.
So, and then technically what I do at the end, Pam, is I cover it. Do you see how I just covered the brush? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now to me, this is clean enough to go right into the wax medium.
Into the clear wax medium.
Yeah, I don't feel that you have to segregate brushes in your studio. Okay. I think that you can clean them. I really think that you should be able to take half a sheet of a paper towel, brush it out, and then do this, Pam. Squeeze it. Okay. Just squeeze it.
Yeah.
Right? So just put it in between the paper towel and squeeze it.
Okay.
And then you should be able to go with the wax medium. Now, I just did that, and let's see if my wax medium is clean. We'll give it a test. So I think that's pretty darn clean. Look here, you can see my results. So this is my mud.
Yeah.
This is my wax medium. That is clean enough for me.
That is clean.
Okay. So all I did was brush it out on the paper and squeezed it with the paper towel.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. So I prepared one small hake brush, and I'm going to use one small bristle brush.
Okay, let me see the sizes.
So the hake brush is probably like that inch and a half.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then this one is probably, this is inch and a half too. Yeah. So I'm going to use two. Now, if you wanted to do a much smoother stroke, like smooth, right?
Yeah.
Smooth, what are you going to do? You're going to use a what?
A bigger one?
A bigger brush, absolutely. So like here's a nice 4-inch hake brush. You see it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing not to like about this brush. I mean,
yeah, I don't have one, but I've got this one. Was it the 2-inch?
Yeah. Okay. So again, look, I'm gonna brush it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna brush it out on paper or on the paper towel. I'm gonna squish it, right? I'm gonna give it a little squish. So I'm gonna squish the extra pigment out. I'm gonna squeeze it. It's a little bit hot, but it's not gonna burn me. I'm not afraid. I'm gonna squeeze it. It looks good. Now, Pam, something that happens is some encaustic pigments might stain this brush.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like having like your colored hair. Like your hair, like you could dye your hair any color right now, right? Because you'd be very open to taking color. But sometimes these get stained, but you can still get the paint out of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I had the vegetable oil, and sometimes I get, if there's a lot of pigment in, I'll pull it out with the oil.
I don't use oil on my hake brushes.
You don't? Okay.
Oh, that sounds terrifying. I would not do that. I would brush them out with a paper towel.
Okay.
Wax and wax only. Like brushes that go in the wax only go in the wax. They should never go in turpentine or oil. Nothing but wax.
Okay.
Wax only. Okay. So I was working on these. I actually put together a little proposal for a hospital art, and they wanted like fields. So I just took this little picture of a wildflower field.
Yeah.
And so let me just demonstrate the brushes. So the big brush, right? It's the wax medium.
Okay.
The reason that I don't use any colored anything directly on the photo is I don't want to stain the photo. Okay. So you understand that. If I want to alter the photo, right, I can use sandpaper or gesso. So just like in the dark room, like if you got a print back or you were using a lab and it was totally dark, and you were like, that's like way too dark, there's no dimension there, there's nothing, that I don't want it that dark. You could take the sandpaper and you can literally do what I call like a organic dodging, right? So you can light the photo.
All right, let me get my sandpaper because there is a place that I want to sand. I'd like to sandpaper.
Right, so this goes back to all of the things that we know about photography, right? Because we're trained photographers, right? So we know everything about burning and dodging and contrast and cropping, right? And we know about rules of thirds, and we know about subject matter, we know about foreground and background, and we also know about depth of field. So, like for me, you're like my golden child of somebody that I like to talk to, because like what I love about this photo is the depth of field that happens, right? Where things in the background become these dreamy spaces of like of abstraction because they're not in focus.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another thing that we really use the wax for. In encaustic photography, we're really using the wax to control what the viewer can focus on. And we're using that and doing that through what I call the lens of the layers of wax. And of course, the thinnest wax is going to be the sharpest picture. And you don't have to have, like, if you start with a sharp picture, you could completely, by the end, make it totally blurry, right? Having a lot of wax. You can control how much of that is in focus with the depth. With the depth of the wax. So if you think about one layer as being like soft focus filter, right? Number one, 2 layers, more soft focus, 3 layers, more soft focus. So they're going to increase, right? Until the image is like totally out of focus and obscured, right? When you probably get to layer 5.
Right.
So
Okay.
you could simply do that test. And let me just use a different image. I'm just going to use this image of this dress. Oh, can I tell you something funny?
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is with, I've always loved magazines, fashion magazines. I mean, they're just kind of like my out. Like when I was a mom, if I ever had a break, I would just like grab a Vogue. Like I'd be with the kids at the play. I would just be like, oh my God, this is heaven. I'm looking at Vogue, right?
Yeah.
So I just got a Vogue recently, and inside the Vogue, they did a series of exactly like the series I did this winter. Is that crazy?
Wow.
So, and there have been more than one occasion that has happened where I have been working on an art project and it shows up in Vogue, like the same exact project. So the project I did was I did these empty dresses. So I took all of my props and dresses and I photographed them without people.
Right.
And then they did the exact same thing. It was crazy.
I guess it's a pandemic style right now.
You know what? I always call it like a collective consciousness.
Yeah.
That like artists, that like artists have similar ideas because we're processing emotions of what's going on around us. But anyway, so that was funny. Okay, so my point is I'm going to take my wax medium and I'm going to demonstrate all 3 brushes, right? Now, this picture, I would probably also do some sanding too, because
I'm going to sand this a little bit.
Like some of these areas are too dark. And also like, this is something I do a lot, and this is interesting. So like here, when I was styling this, I put this piece of cheesecloth here, okay? Now,
I see it, yeah.
Through my years of experience, I have learned that if I use something in the studio for the encaustic, I like to use it also in the photo shoot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's allowed me to make connections.
Mm-hmm. Because
So,
you can visualize, you go back and forth, visualize it. Yeah.
so I can
Cool.
go back and forth from visualizing. So like that could also be a cool assignment for you. Like if you like a certain material in your encaustic work, like I like cheesecloth, you could do
Mm-hmm.
a photo shoot of a model or a still life, and you could put a piece of cheesecloth in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know that when I go to paint this, if I
Yeah.
add a piece of cheesecloth here, I'm just sort of reiterating this
Mm-hmm.
idea. Like I'm repeating it. It goes back to the weaving, right? Underneath
Yeah.
and on top. So it's
Okay.
giving me connection, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that was in a way how I was able to start really growing in my encaustic is I was kind of using women's clothing and fashion and location and flowers in their hair to give me like connections that I could paint, that things
Mm-hmm.
become painterly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm gonna sand this one a little bit.
I just sanded this corner of this one.
Great,
So.
and if I sand it down here, to me that makes it like a continuation of the dress, right? And so now I've made this a little bit lighter, and in making this area lighter, I feel like I've continued the feeling of this
Oh
dress.
yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So sometimes my intentions are fairly simple, but then they look beautiful because I've introduced texture or whatever.
This is, I'm glad I'm doing this with you because it would take me a lot to get my nerve up to put sandpaper on this beautiful print you've done.
Okay,
Well,
one of the other things I like to do is I like to sort of what I call like define line and positive and negative space. So what I think is going to make this dress pop forward, because this image is on the ground, what's going to create a separation is if I kind of do what I call an outside line. So sometimes I might use a wax crayon or a charcoal stick. You could use a pen. You could even use a lead pencil, and you could just kind of go around to sort of like the dark areas of the photo.
I found when I tried that with charcoal, it was hard. I mean, I would smudge it, but it was hard to not have the wax drag it.
It's hard. So what you could do to not get let me test it. What I do is I wipe it before I put the wax on.
Okay.
So let me try the charcoal because I like the charcoal, but what does the charcoal if it I'm gonna put a little bit of charcoal up here at the top. I'm gonna put a little bit here. So what I do is I'm rubbing it with my finger. So I'm kind of doing a little shading technique. Also kind of, I've always really liked like slow shutter speeds and maybe a little blur sometimes in the image. So I feel like this kind of allows me to kind of maybe suggest a little bit of movement. Okay, so here I am. So I really rubbed it in, Pam. Like, and I feel like I have most of it on my fingers.
Yeah.
So test it with a paper towel.
And really rub. Okay.
So now I have it more blended into the paper. So it might not come off as much on the brush.
Okay.
So, and it didn't really, like, I think it looks kind of nice down here where I like use it on the branch. And it just kind of creates like what I
fine. It helps define.
Yeah. And if you put the charcoal over the sand where you sanded it, you're gonna create this interaction between it's so cool. And these are the types of things that I like to encourage in my work, where one thing sort of reacts to another thing, you know, it's kind of like the alchemy, you know, like the paper having its surface and the charcoal having its, you know what I don't know, it's just, they're kind
I'm
of
looking for my charcoal. I was using it for makeup also out on the rock. And the paint was sick too when I was using it for makeup.
Oh my God, that's great.
Charcoal, where's the charcoal? Okay.
It's okay. I mean, I'm just doing this as an example. You can do it another time. Don't stress on it. So let's test it with the brush. All right, I'm just gonna give it like a 1/over. Now I could also do encaustic gesso here. So where do you think I might do encaustic gesso?
You mean the white?
Yeah, white, and in the highlight areas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just got a brand new tub of encaustic gesso. How exciting.
I like the charcoal because of the smudging, you know, it's yeah. Okay.
Well, I like everything a little, I mean, you know, for photographers and photography, when you're doing like a commercial job, you definitely don't want your work to be blurry. But like for me, I was like, why can't my work be blurry? Like, I love it blurry. You don't love it? What's the matter with you? Okay.
No, that's been, for me, that's been wonderful to be using these, you know, like this lens baby, you know, things that are softer.
Oh my God, me too.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, when I'm looking at this picture, I'm seeing nice black shapes that I know I can kind of accentuate. And I'm seeing a lot of what I would call like mid-tone grays. And I'm seeing bright white in the background, which is okay, but I think I need another area of bright white. So I could start to think about what that might be. And I think I might, you know, I could sort of, I think this side of the dress could go white and maybe some of these flowers, right?
I see, yeah.
And I don't try to be, like with this type of work, like this is what underpainting, right? It's kind of like who's gonna know if you're wearing purple underwear? You know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna know that you're, you know, wearing a fancy dress and you're wearing, you know, your workout shorts underneath. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like private, and this is like your. But what I can start to do is I can start to add white where I think I might need help to kind of like.
Just little highlights.
Little highlights, exactly. Little highlights, right. I'm not trying to like, you know, go nuts, but just like some areas that I want to kind of remember are bright, or that I want to remember there's a flower there. And look, I can also make things bigger. Like here I can make these flowers like bigger than they actually are, right? So I can sort of start like the fantasy. The fantasy, right? Like, and I could put more flowers, just, and not necessarily even trying to be specific, just like the basic context of that flower shape, you know, kind of in this area. All right, and I think that's plenty, right? I don't need more than that.
Yeah, because with this one, with this picture, I like doing the underpainting.
Hold up higher.
Yeah, no, so I put a little bit of sandpaper, a little bit of charcoal. One thought for me, maybe on this one I shouldn't try to, one thought was to make the top part light and the bottom darker, but I'm thinking maybe on this one for today.
What about dress? What about where the white actually is? What I tend to go for is like where there is white, make more white, and then kind of gradient.
Yeah, just do highlights on this instead of trying to blur out the whole top of the back of the photograph. Okay.
Yeah, maybe just her dress, and then also like if you want to get rid. So we have a similar situation here, right? I have a white border, right? So I want that border to stay there. So I'm either going to have to go outside the edge, right? Start to kind of use the charcoal to expand the canvas, or I'm gonna cut it off, right? So those are kind of like my options. I mean, you can leave the border there and decide later. I mean, these are not things that you have to totally decide right at this second. You know what I mean? Like you could always paint as if you're going to keep the border, but then guess what? You could always crop. You could always crop it right to full frame anytime, you know?
All right.
So, but I'm going outside the border a little bit with the charcoal, and then I might go outside the border a little bit at the bottom with the gesso. This gives me an option. I think it's just playfulness, really, and sort of that like je ne sais quoi, like I don't care, I'm going outside the line, you know, like I'm painting this, like Lottie, like hello, that I'm having fun. I'm, you know, feeling these things, right? So look,
that's why the time that I did the pigment stick, you know, already on the textured wax, I went out and I had so much fun. It's like, I'm not going to touch this. I'm not going to melt it.
Well,
I'll just let it.
Look up close at this beautiful texture right in the corner right there.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's the kind of thing that just is like so beautiful. Just like the charcoal just did that to the paper. Like I didn't do that. These guys are like magic. You know, there's a lot of beauty in just like simple things, like, you know, just the way the charcoal reacts to the paper is beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you don't have to work so hard to be so beautiful, to be so good. Like sometimes the materials that you are using are just good. Like just, you know, just kind of like the wax. Like sometimes just the wax itself is so beautiful. Why am I trying so hard? Like this is just beautiful. Like this is just beautiful all by itself, right?
Let me get my gesso out and I'll try and do a couple of highlight things on the gesso with the gesso.
Right, and then you also
this is great because this is coming back to that first class that we had, you know, where you're doing underpainting, and I'd kind of forgotten about the underpainting. So yes, this is fantastic.
There are a couple things that have become important to me, and one is like the paper that I use, right? Two is sort of this, it's like walking your favorite trail. Like you just kind of like, you just like know these beautiful spaces. Like you just follow the steps, and in a way, it's just almost like the consistency of the steps just sort of starts to really make the work happen because you trust the steps, you know? So it's like you feel confident that, you know, you're going to see some beautiful things and you're going to, you know, you're on this little trip and it's going to go well. So, right. So now I'm having fun. I mean, I'm going to stop, but I feel like this is a much more interesting composition overall, and it has a lot more to offer. It's tactile, it's exciting, and now I think I'm ready to hit it with the heat gun and then start painting it.
Oh, so you do the heat gun before you start putting the wax on?
Yeah, I do a little heat gunning to the gesso just to see what it will do, and also you can tone, like the thing about the heat is you can tone the paper, like you could get like a brown tone, you can get like some ghosty brown highlights. You can do some things with either the torch or the heat gun that kind of like, it's like toasting a marshmallow. You can kind of like, you know, get some color out. You can get some color out of it, right? Like, did you ever tone photos in the darkroom?
No, I was pretty just straight up black and white.
Okay, so I was like a toneaholic, you know, like that was part of my things. And once I started, I mean, you can sort of start to learn a couple things about my personality here. Like, so once I started to tone, then I was like, oh, wait, how many times can I tone it? And how many different colors can I tone it? And can I leave it in there for 3 days? You know what I mean?
You just were playing, experimenting. That's wonderful. Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh, like I can do this, but like, what if I do this? You know, like, I kind of like to look at it. And you know, I think why too is because it was a challenge. It made it more challenging, first of all, and it made it more interesting to me. So and I wanted to be original, and I didn't want my work just to look like the person, you know, who invented the cyan, you know, or whatever. I wanted my, I guess I wanted my personality traits to really be evident in the work, and this
and you've developed that. I mean, yours is such a distinctive, beautiful style. Yeah. So, right.
And I think one of the things about my style and my painting in general is I'm always sort of like, oh, what else, you know, like, what else can I do? And and you know what? I just met an artist yesterday on the phone, and I'm going to do an artist talk with her. But she's a lot like me, but she's gone even further than I have. Like, so, like, you're always
doing wax and caustic or other different
kind of like metal and wood and like acid burning. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds terrifying. I would spill it. I would spill it, and I'd be a mess. I'd be like, oh my God, it'd be a disaster. But I mean, so you know, that I think is the nature of the artist, right? The true artist is to say, oh, okay, I understand the technical aspects of this thing. And then how am I going to make it my own? Like, what am I going to do? Right? And what do I like about it? What does it have to offer me? You know, and what do I really like about it? Like, there are certain things that make me, you know, really happy about even the underpainting, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I can take a couple pictures too, which might be helpful. I think it's a really fun thing too to take your iPhone or your camera, whatever, and to go into a piece that you're working on and sort of photograph like your favorite parts. Like,
oh, okay. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Oh, well, we'll see.
So like, I don't know if you can you see this, but like that's an up close. Oh, wait, hold on. That's an up close.
That's a detail in it. Oh yeah.
That's cool. A detail of just that outside line that I drew.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know why it's getting that late. And those, you know, that, so it's really starting to have more contrast than it had before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good idea to, what I like to think about is build up the contrast before you start waxing it down. Right?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because if it's dull and it's flat and the tones are close together and you put a bunch of wax on it, guess what? I think it's
dull.
More dull. You're gonna be very right. You're gonna have to use another whole skill set or of techniques to get it to pop again.
Well, we'll see if this is going to work or not for me.
So I'm just giving you an FYI. It's 12:18, but
right.
I am fine. Let's get through these layers of wax. Let's just go until, let's go. Are you okay for another 20 minutes?
Yeah, whatever works is fine. You know, we're kind of on a roll with it, so.
Right, and I'm looking around at your studio, your porch too, and I think it'd be a really fun assignment for you to kind of go around to the art that you've collected and the things about it, colors. Like I see a lot of red and black and brown and like
actually my partner's masks up here. This is more like his. Yeah, but yeah, that's it. That is a good idea.
It's still part of your environment, and he's part of your life. Like my husband is a machinist, a motorcycle guy, and a machinist. So I always think that it's like I'm like the lace and floral, and he's like the metal, and like I'm the soft, and he's the hard of the world. And that's why we're so. But I'm very aware of our yin and yang and how that, but I love his stuff. Like I don't want to do anything in his, I don't want to touch any of it, but like I don't want to work with it, but I appreciate it, so it affects our existence and our balance here in our lives. So it's interesting too, but he has a lot of stuff with a lot of texture and like metal shavings and curly, things like that. I'm very artistically interested.
Cool.
So, all right. So I'm going to put your screen back on the piece, and first we're going to do the nice smooth stroke.
Okay. Oh, did you already
heat gun yet? Now I'm going to heat mine.
Okay, so I'll go right at my heat gun.
If I can. Yeah.
I usually have to turn off the hot plate so I don't break a circuit through a circuit breaker. Oh my God. All right. So
a couple things happen for me when I use the heat gun.
Yeah.
One is that I get a little three-dimensional texture, which is nice.
I think I put it on really thick, so it's taking a while to dry.
Just hold it over. Just stay with it. Holding power.
Oh, I see it. Oh, it just bubbled. Oh. Okay.
So very close too for this. You can be very close to the paper.
Okay.
Because that'll increase the heat if you go closer.
Okay. It's bubbling a little bit.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Cool.
And then if you keep it on there even longer, it'll start to brown or even crack.
I see. Okay. Woo!
Well, I got some browning. I got some like toning.
Oh, because you've got the torch. Yeah, I don't.
No, I'm using the heat gun. I got some browning. I just went like, I got a little like radiant brown burned paper look.
Really?
Yeah, just hold it close for a while. And it's turning, my paper's turning kind of pink. I got a little pink. You see here, I got a little, up in here, I got a little brown, gray.
Oops. Then what a brown face. Okay, I have to run to the bathroom. I'll be very quick.
Oh, go ahead. Take your time.
2 seconds, and then that'll allow us a little more time to dry.
Yeah,
okay.
go for it.
Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. So make sure your surface is dry and maybe want to wipe it off with a paper towel for
yeah, it's still, oh, looks like it still needs a little more dry.
So what I do is just wipe it with my hand, and as long as nothing's coming off on my hand, I'm good to go.
Okay. This is still bubbling a little bit. So.
I'm gonna find my water.
All right, I think we're good. We're good to go.
Okay. Okay. Oh, where'd you come from? It's my dog. It's my dog. Hi.
We just got a puppy.
Oh, hey, Susan. You just it's fine. I'm on a Zoom class. How are you? No, my friend Susan's stopping by. She's bringing some artwork. Yeah.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Was she out in the yard? My dog? Oh God. I've been in here for like an hour and a half. I didn't even know where she was.
Oh God.
She's on by. I'm gonna go by the art center and take that stuff upstairs, like you said. Maybe look through it. I'll look through it.
If anything's like clearly marked with somebody's name, you should get in touch with them.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll send you a link to the auction when it's up.
Okay,
I'll keep you posted. It's nice to see you. Thanks so much. Okay, bye. Okay, you ready? So we're gonna go. I'm gonna do the wide hake brush.
Okay.
So first. Okay, so when I make a decision, so this is interesting. When I'm preparing to paint, I look at the piece and I go, where do I want visibility? Okay? And the places that I want visibility, I'm going to be more likely to use the bigger brush and a smoother stroke.
Like a face or, yeah.
Exactly, a face. So, and one of the things that helped me was when I just did like the close-up pictures of this, I allowed my eye and my camera, because I'm a photographer first, I allowed my eye and my camera to kind of help me pick out my favorite parts of the picture.
Okay.
And what
I wanted to emphasize. All right.
Yeah, so even though this is one subject matter, like this dress, it has a lot of supporting actors and actresses. It has a lot of other elements. So which ones are going to get more, attention by being clearer, and which ones are going to get distracted or changed or transformed by other things. So I know that in order for this picture to make sense, this area right here is crucial, because this kind of defines that this is a dress. If I don't keep this core identification, it will become too abstract.
Okay.
So, but that's just like sort of the analysis that I just made. If I really wanted it just to be abstract, that is also an option, but it would change the way I would paint it. Does that make sense?
Right, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So because I did a lot of work with these dress series, and ultimately they are going to be a dress series, I would like the dress to be identifiable. Right. Okay. So and my work with figures are kind of the same. Like I always felt like there was a part of every figure that was recognizable. As much as I would abstract things, I thought it was also important to have a part that was photographic and representational of the female figure, because that's very important to me. Right. Okay, so here I go. So I'm going to use the big brush on this part, which is like here, right? And I'm not getting a ton of bleeding from any of the charcoal or black parts, and I don't see any blackness on my brush, right? Well, maybe, no, I don't. I really don't. So I'm going to do a straight line there, maybe a straight line here. Now I'm going to switch, and I'm going to use both of these other brushes to do these outside edges. And now, because of the size of this brush, I know I can do these shorter, like, swishy strokes You know, I can kind of go, I can switch my direction from up and down to horizontal, right? I mean, I can even do, for this undercoating, I can even do what I call, you know, a blot. And if you have an area with a lot of charcoal, you can just put wax on top.
Oh, just blot it. Yeah.
Blot it. Look, so here I have a lot of charcoal, and I don't want to ruin my charcoal, so I'm going to change my brushing technique.
I see. Yeah.
To cover, but to not disrupt. Right? So, and then what happens when I do this is I'm creating a little bit of these like layered, they're almost like shingles, right? Where the brush strokes kind of like lay over top of each other, which also creates an interesting texture. And I can go kind of down here. I can go, you know, and again, I can do anything creative I want. And covering this. I could also switch brushes again and use this little woodsy guy, right? The little woodsy guy.
Yeah, right.
And I think of him as being, he's like, I always think of his purpose as like a burlap. So when I use this brush, I tend to do what I call a hashtag.
Okay.
That's my primary use for using this brush, is a hashtag. See what I'm doing?
Yep, I got it.
So literally, Pam, I just demonstrated, you know, like 4 or 5 wax medium brush techniques, right? We did the wide brush with the super smooth, like glass-like. Did a sweeping, kind of curvy, dashy line with little hake. We did the blotting technique over the charcoal, right? And we did the rough hashtag where I just kept brushing up, down, over, up, down, over, right? And now I have quite a variety of textures on this one piece based on sort of the mood I feel or what I'm trying to do with these different areas of that image.
Okay, so even for the first round, you don't just coat the whole thing smooth. You use these different.
I don't, unless that is something that you want. If you want the whole image smooth, that's fine. I tend to do variables.
Even at the beginning. Okay.
Even at the beginning. Right.
So I found I had a problem when I was trying to do the smooth hake brush, and mine isn't as wide, but I don't know if I had too much wax on, but I do it for a while, and then it would, I don't know, it would sort of catch, and then I'd have this blob of wax. So it seems like practicing the brush strokes are going to be important for me too, if I want to get a really smooth, you know, and how much wax is on there.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but these aren't things that you have to go, like, you just have to make art. You have to, like, I mean, I wouldn't drive yourself crazy about it. There's no right and wrong here. I mean, if you're trying to do a smooth and you get caught or whatever and you have to lift your brush, guess what? I mean, take your heat gun, you know, scrape it off, start over. I mean,
all right.
Like, but what I would suggest is that you paint with 2 or 3 brushes. Okay. For that wax medium coating, right? And then you try a couple different techniques, you know. And what I'm trying to encourage too is that the choices of brushing and the choice of brushing style correspond with your intentions, intentions for the photo.
Right.
I'm starting to I want to connect these parts of your knowledge and your intuition. So I was clear when I said that the smooth was for where I wanted to see more details of the photo, right? And then the brushy hashtag back and forth was maybe like an outside area or an area that had a lot of texture in it. Like it could be good for tree bark or the sky or water. It could be really good for the water.
Oh yeah.
Why don't we take a minute? It's 12:34. Why don't we take a minute where I watch you do this, and you can kind of tell me what problems you're having, we can kind of troubleshoot it together so you don't feel like you're all
The
alone.
other thing is, as I look at this, I want to do a little bit more pencil, not the charcoal, but just some pencil definition, because I see that her hands are.
Do you want to end for today and come back
Yeah,
to
I think we should, because what I want to do is I noticed there's almost no definition there. So if I do it with pencil, not charcoal, I'll have more over here, this area.
I love that picture so much, and I feel like where you put the highlights are beautiful.
Oh, good.
The water around her, I feel like it's beautiful. And I mean, there's a lot of art that you could reference while you're working on this piece. Like Sally, do you know Sally Mann is?
No, I don't know.
You should look at Sally Mann. She's a photographer, but she lived in Virginia, but she photographed her children a lot in water, in the creek.
Okay.
So it's like about people and water, and then, you know, images of water and how people paint water. Like you can.
Oh yeah, Sally Mae. Okay, I'll look her
Sally
up.
Mann's a photographer. You'll just love her. Okay,
Good.
we can end here for today, and next week is a wipeout for me. So what happened for my life is that basically, wait, I'm gonna stop the recording, but hold on.
Don't worry.